Welcome to the FF Forge, the Fantasy Football Forge. I'm Steve, and today we will be doing some mock drafting, some play testing from the 7, 8, and 9 spots of a 12-team league. I will go over some of the settings that I'm drafting under shortly, but that is Half-PPR, just to let you know off the top of the video in case I don't have that in the title. I don't recall if I do. Other than that, there are going to be a few news points after cuts yesterday and some guys moving teams, some rumors, whatever the case, that I will go over. I have figured out how to timestamp these YouTube videos, so I went back and I did do timestamps in the first 2 mock drafting videos, so from spots picks 1 through 3, which some of those takes are already dated a little bit here, less than a week later. And then spots 4, 5, and 6 from, I believe, yesterday's video or 2 days ago, depending on when I get this up. Let's start with the news. First thing is Kenyon Drake going to Baltimore. And what is that? What's my thoughts, I guess, with that and J.K. Dobbins? I already have the concerns for J.K. Dobbins baked into his draft ADP, or, where I have him ranked. And just my willingness to rank him, which you've seen throughout these videos, is there, but cautious. So I don't think that really changes anything for me. I'm still cautious about J.K. Dobbins. I'm not extra concerned about his week 1 availability, but no matter what, I am expecting to hopefully have somebody that maybe I could play ahead of him week 1, week 2, week 3 or so, and then hoping that he gets his legs under him and is, back to J.K. Dobbins from that point forward. So not too concerned about that. I think it makes sense for the team, and if anything, that's really more concerning for like Gus Edwards and Justice Hill, some of the backups there. Even Mike Davis. Moving on to Rondale Moore is someone that I think in my 1 through 3 video I said I don't like. So let me just first start out by saying when I say I don't like a guy, I don't know these guys. I'm talking about where they're getting drafted, what I think of their fantasy potential this season. And recently some news has come out about Rondale Moore slotted to have a big role in this offense, and part of that being that he'll basically take over the Christian Kirk role in the offense. Now, I thought, to me, that it would make sense to have Marquise Brown in the slot. He did end up playing as a essential wide receiver 1 in Baltimore, did okay with it there. So I understand that he can be, in an outside wide receiver type role, perimeter wide receiver role, just fine. Looks like that's what the team's going to do. So yeah, I am more excited about Rondale Moore than I previously was. Knew I might have been under-ranking him, underthinking him, knew that potential's there. So he is definitely a high upside, late target that you can get, and more willing to take him now. The Chargers are looking to bring in Sony, which means he was cut from the Dolphins. I just drafted Raheem Mostert in the previous video the other day. Based on what I saw from him, looks like the team liked what they saw from him on the field in that little bit. I thought that they would keep all 3 of those backs, and they were just going to have a super ultra running back by committee type situation there. But that really opens things up for just Chase Edmonds and Raheem Mostert to share the load with Myles Gaskin coming in and just relieving them a few snaps a game or something like that. So I'm a little bit more excited about a Chase Edmonds. Still think maybe he gets drafted a little high for my preferences, but I could so be wrong on that. So, if he's someone you like, I'm not telling you not to take him. He's just not really a target for me. And Raheem Mostert still moving up a little bit more, even probably in my thoughts on him in my rankings. Other news, so he goes to the Chargers. Well, he's being brought in to be looked at in the Chargers system. I listened to the recent Yahoo podcast. I think it's been out for like less than 10 hours at this point, with Austin Eckler and Justin Herbert were on there. Few notes from that. First of all, they were asked, Eckler was asked about the backup running back role. Who's that going to be? He immediately talked about both Kelly and Roundtree it going back and forth all offseason between those two, and then as an afterthought brought up Spiller. I don't know that Spiller's worth drafting at this point. Maybe week 7, week 8, he's going to come in and be that backup role then, but for now, it just doesn't seem like it's there. With how Kelly's ran, I would suspect it would be him, or maybe Sony Michel's going to come in and be that backup role. Now, this is part of the reason why I don't have Austin Eckler as high as his ECR is. I have been of the belief since they drafted CJ Spiller, since before last season, they don't want Austin Eckler getting that kind of workload that he had to take last season. That's why I was so high on him last year. That's why I'm lower on him this year. It's pretty clear to me bringing Sony Michel in like this too. They are looking for someone they can trust to put on the field to just lighten that workload for Eckler a little bit. And that is good for Eckler owners. I just think maybe he's being taken a few spots too high, ranked over a couple of running backs that I would rather have. He's still going to be great for fantasy. No concerns there. But just my thoughts on him. And also, I briefed over the fact that Gerald Everett might be a good target for tight end, late or as a second tight end kind of guy, or to just keep an eye on. And he actually got mentioned twice in that podcast, and he is someone to look for. They definitely seem excited about his potential in that offense. I don't see why not. That tight end position was actually somewhat viable in fantasy last year with Donald Parham, who I love. But it could be a surprising, good floor kind of tight end to have. Laviska Shenault went traded to the Panthers. So this affects the Jaguars in the fact that I'm moving Travis Etienne up a little bit. That is, to me, maybe like 4 more touches a game that I thought might go elsewhere to Laviska. Now I think Travis Etienne they feel comfortable with him taking that role. Also signals to me, if that's the case, if they think that they can throw Etienne out as a slot type wide receiver thing, where you can move him from the backfield to the wide receiver position, I have maybe a little bit more faith in James Robinson. I have probably too much faith already in that. I was faced with a situation in this draft, actually, where I almost took him, but that Achilles injury is just so scary to me, as far as the fact that nobody's ever really returned from it and been successful. But it's a small sample size. It's not like that sample size is loaded with guys who've had the production of James Robinson in the past. So I do think that James Robinson could be an absolute steal, just not one I'm necessarily quite willing to take the risk on. And as far as the Panthers go, I guess if you thought something of Diami Brown, you probably shouldn't anymore. If you were someone who's kind of high up on their second wide receiver, maybe cool that down a little bit more. I gave a reason to tamper that down in one of the previous videos as well. Maybe Panthers offense in general up a little bit, just might be a little bit more productive, a little bit more well-rounded if Laviska can be what they're hoping to get from him. And the last thing this morning, a negative article, I don't know what it was, opinion piece came out about David Montgomery. There have been people clamoring all offseason as far as Khalil Herbert coming in, maybe taking some work from D-Mont. Here's the thing. That coaching staff, that style, is meant to have the similar players all up on the field at the same time, regularly, high-paced, keeping the players on the field, and you just put little wrinkles in the offense. There's a lot of keeping the same personnel on the field is very important to that offense, and unless Khalil Herbert's better than David Montgomery, and I don't think he is, I don't think the team thinks he is, regardless of what that article had to say this morning, it's just not much of a concern. And in the one preseason sample with the number one offense and David Montgomery out there, he had 20-2 carries against Khalil Herbert. That's how I expect to go through the season. Still love Khalil as a backup running back for 2 reasons. If he does come in, we saw last year how he can produce for fantasy owners. He won't have to share. He is known that he will get the David Montgomery role as soon as David Montgomery goes down, as well as the fact that, there is some concerns about David Montgomery. So what if halfway through the season they just decide D-Mont's not doing it for them? Khalil Herbert's their number one running back. It's always possible. That is all I have for notes, thoughts on it, but Demont's workload is not getting stolen from him by Khalil Herbert. Oh, I probably passed over Marlon Mack getting cut. I don't know. I'm not shocked, so it wasn't a big piece of information to me. It doesn't change my opinion on Dameon Pierce. I've always had him right around that like 4th round or so as in my rankings, so it doesn't change my opinions on him. Overall, I don't know how much he's going to end up moving up in drafts. I don't know how much that's going to get caught into like your typical home draft. Off the top of my head, 4th round is where you could take Dameon Pierce, and you're not necessarily getting a value on him. You're getting a typical dead zone running back who could outproduce that, could not outproduce that, who there will be other running backs taken in the 6th, 7th round who will probably maybe do better than him, at least for stretches of the season, that you'll look back and say, wish I had them. So 4th round, okay to take Dameon Pierce, not excited about it necessarily anymore. 5th round is where I've felt like I'm getting a value on Dameon Pierce to start out with and been able to get him much later. Know how in tuned with all the news your league is, how quickly you're drafting after the Tuesday cuts, and just take that into factor of how early you can take them. Should be going anywhere from, I would think in most leagues, like 5th to 7th round is probably where he's going now. So I will also try to replicate that and in doing these mock drafts today. Let's get to it. I drafted Russell Wilson, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, DJ Moore, Allen Robinson, Cole Kmet, A.J. Dillon, Indianapolis Colts, Tyler Bass, Dameon Pierce, Rashad Bateman, Drake London, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Rashad White, Raheem Mostert, Isaiah McKenzie. Derrick Henry fell to the spot. Obviously going to take him. I almost didn't because trying to mimic what you might see in your drafts, but actually if there's anybody who's going to fall, that makes sense that he might fall to this spot sometimes, with an Austin Eckler getting taken before him. Made enough sense, and then Saquon Barkley there. Obviously, let's do it. That's awesome. And then took DJ Moore over maybe a few guys. I'm higher up than I feel comfortable with on DJ Moore this season. I think he's one of a few guys around that spot of the draft who really has some upside, could be better than a Debo, a CD, a Keenan Allen. I have Keenan higher than him, but those are the guys where, he could be a top 6-ish type wide receiver. That's definitely in the purview of possibilities for DJ Moore. So, like that, came back around, took A.J. Dillon, really just making sure that this running back is a strength of mine and never isn't, is the idea with this roster. Followed up with Allen Robinson. Wanted somebody who's going to not make this team lose, because I'm feeling like I have some nice advantage going on already, some good value. Followed that up with Dameon Pierce in the 6th round. He probably would have made it around the turn, but I just wanted to replicate more realistically what we would probably be seeing in drafts. Follow that up with another kind of safer type guy, Rashad Bateman. He should have a high floor. He should have a certain amount of targets, maybe around 10-ish most games, that are pretty much locked and loaded for him to receive game in and game out. And with that, a good ceiling does come from that. I don't know that he'll have enough touchdowns to hit his ceiling too many weeks, but good floor guy. Follow that up with Drake London, just changing it up to a guy that I haven't drafted on here, who has the world in front of him. Mostly wanted a little bit of upside. I was definitely looking at, I believe I was looking at Hunter Renfrow. Maybe I was looking at him here. Yeah, like him. Wish he wasn't injured this time of the year. That kind of stinks right now. There's definitely some concern with that injury, and maybe as we get closer, he'll start to fall a little bit. So maybe keep an eye on his ADP. If he's someone that you are targeting, you might be able to get a good value on him. And then Marquez Valdes-Scantling, we know. I love that upside at this point in the draft. Took him over Chris Olave, would have been the guy that most players might have taken. Since I took Drake London, I didn't want too much, hey, I'm going to have to wait 6-7 weeks for this guy to start producing at a good fantasy level. Rookies can tend to take a little while to get their feet under them. So, wanted the vet in that offense. I just love Marquez Valdes-Scantling's value in this draft. Follow that up with Russell Wilson. Couldn't wait any longer. So, 3, 6, 9, 10th round quarterback. You can get a Russell, a Trey Lance. Now, I did not want to take 2 quarterbacks, so that is the main reason that I took Russell over Trey Lance. Trey Lance has a higher ceiling, but he also may not be starting anymore after week 6. It's a possibility for him. That's not my expectation. Follow that up with Rachaad White. I'm pretty solid up at the front end of the running backs, so just a dart throw kind of deal. And Raheem Mostert, maybe it's a dart throw, but I would say it's a value pick at that point in the draft, around 12-ish. Was able to just go ahead and get my favorite defense, knowing that I was going to go ahead and kind of take them high. As far as a defense and a kicker, just kind of get some good targets there. Took Cole Kmet 3 rounds before the end there. Wouldn't be opposed to having taken like Dawson Knox here if you're not comfortable with Cole. I will say one thing. Apparently, David Montgomery is struggling to catch balls. I feel like he's always been a bit of a good receiver from the backfield, so I don't know what that change would be other than maybe struggling to catch specifically Justin Fields' balls. Maybe they're not on the same page quite yet. So if that's the case, I would expect them to figure it out with time. But if that is a season-long issue, then Cole Kmet, and that would probably be the main reason that you would have concerns about David Montgomery in that system. You definitely want your running back to be able to be trustworthy, to be a threat to the other team. But that would just increase the trust in Cole Kmet. Few more targets for him. They work the same type of areas of the field. I would say, if anything, from that news about David Montgomery, Cole Kmet's stock just goes up a tick. Two targets a game or something more than I previously might have expected. And then Tyler Bass at kicker and Isaiah McKenzie wide receiver, just kind of taking a safe guy, a true reserve type of player for this team. Love it. That's a solid team. I'd take that any day. All right, let's just quick cover anything in here. We know it's 12 team. We know half-PPR. We know we're drafting from the 7th position for this draft, and then we moved on to the 8th. That last one was in the 7th position. 7 bench spots is standard, all standard here. 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 1 tight end, 1 flex wide receiver, running back, or tight end, 1 DST, 1 kicker. Explained in my previous video a little bit about why these are the settings I'm going with. If we had more time, I could go venture out a little bit more, but it's time to draft our teams. Also, do like messing with these position values, especially if you're in a home league and you know how your draft mates draft. You can switch them. I would suggest going, they changed it a little bit. There used to be only like 3 settings, and it's probably good because I sometimes we'll go at the highest settings, and even that wasn't crazy. So I would suggest going more than the slightly high here if you're adjusting things for a noticeable trend in how your league mates draft. We'll be using the Fantasy Pros ECR rankings here instead of my own, largely just to give us a good idea of what you might expect to run into and how you might expect your team to look if you're kind of relying on the experts over any kind of personal opinions on players. Do I take Cooper Kupp over Derrick Henry? I actually have Dalvin Cook rated over Derrick Henry. No, I don't. The experts do. I can't advocate taking Dalvin Cook over Cooper Kupp, so we'll go with that. I would take Cooper Kupp over Dalvin Cook there. Let's see how the running backs. Can someone get pushed to us? So I do. You know what? I like this upside more than Ezekiel Elliott. Let's do it. I don't love Mike Williams. Otherwise, I wouldn't be opposed to that and then just going hard at running back. But we're just going to start that with Breece Hall. Now, may have to wait a few weeks for that to come together. We're going to not take Dameon Pierce in this draft. So if you wanted a high-end wide quarterback right there at that 5th round turn, if you're in this, I would say the 6, 7 spot or so, it's no guarantee that they're going to come back to you by the 6th. I did get Kyler late 6th. I thought that was a gift. The only reason I took a quarterback that early in the draft, there was like 7 quarterbacks taken ahead of him, so it's like, the value's just too good. Darnell Mooney, Gabriel Davis. I give the nod to better offense, the better quarterback. the player that I personally love. I call him Baby Davis. He's my boy. My baby boy. If we go running back, I would do Ramondre Stevenson here, but I wouldn't be opposed to anybody else. So I feel like this is about the point in the draft where wide receivers start to go. Now, I am all about that Christian Kirk. I think he's a great deal. I do like Brandon Ayuk. I do think he will possibly be a little inconsistent, however. And I love Hunter Renfrow. We'll just go with the rankings so you can kind of see what you're following the rankings here. Joe Burrow, not a bad pick here, I don't think. It'll be a good value. We're not going to be taking Dameon Pierce. It's concerning to me that Kareem Hunt wants out of there. Is his usage going down this season, that he's not happy with it, or maybe it's just an age thing? Let's see what happens if we push that running back. I don't like this. And so we'll also get our Christian Kirk here, and we probably don't need any more. Bit of a tight spot between Burrow and James Cook. We are thin at running back. Zero RB is a thing. We can just go half zero RB. Okay, I'm not a fan of Nyheim Hines, but there is that potential. What is Brian Robinson's ADP starting to look like? He's a guy we could put on the bench here who's probably going to come into a starting role when he comes back. And there was no damage to the internals for him. Probably going to hurt when he gets tackled and falls on his butt or gets his knee hit a lot. He seems like the type of guy who would play through that pain. We're going to take a few dart shots here. Okay, so here is how we finished off that draft. Khalil Herbert, followed by Brian Robinson, followed by Zamir White, taking some stabs to get some hopefuls in the running back. And Brian Robinson, we should be able to stash in our IR, I believe. I've been wrong on that before. That is nice. That will open up another roster spot for us to take something. Probably another wide receiver. Just took 5 of them. Or maybe a tight end if we don't love Dawson Knox. Or there's a guy out there like an Albert O who we might see some high upside with. Backup quarterback. Whatever you want to spend it on. Or DST. I don't mind planning like a week ahead for bad matchups with your starting DST, or just totally flopping those around like all season. I think it's nice to have an extra roster spot to churn. So taking Brian Robinson gives you a free churnable roster spot. Joe Burrow, I think that was a great value where we got him. Travis Etienne and Breece Hall at running back. High upside, not amazing. But we did get Cooper Kupp, CeeDee Lamb, and then we have Antonio Gibson, who we could start like week 1 over Breece Hall probably. Gabriel Davis, Brandon Ayuk, Christian Kirk for that flex spot for now. Our wide receivers are strong. Yeah, this makes sense. This is about an area in the draft where if you go 2 wide receivers, you can start to get some decent running backs in this area who will be viable. Should help your team, and a little bit of upside sometimes to some of them. Yeah, this 7 spot's not shabby, but we don't want to draft from it again. But look at that. Now we are drafting from the number 8 spot. Let's just see. We'll start with Najee. I have no qualms with that. I mean, at what point do I take somebody over Saquon? I can't advocate to not take Saquon around this spot. Nice to get 2 running backs in those high tiers. And definitely we'll take Pittman as our wide receiver 1. Not a big fan of Cam Akers. I think he's getting way overdrafted. I don't think you take a quarterback over this tier of wide receiver here, this 3rd tier. Right, looking at the next tier of wide receivers, DK, Darnell Mooney, Gabe Davis, Jared Jeudy. I mean, DK could definitely end up being worth it here. I spoke on him yesterday. Darnell Mooney could be incredibly inconsistent, as always possible. Gabe Davis we love, but we've drafted him. You know, sometimes silence in camp is a good thing. Sometimes that's people keeping the secret quiet as much as they can. Let's take a little bit of an upside shot on Jared Jeudy. It's always possible that Jeudy is the Tyler Lockett of old. We will come in and take CEH. So it sounds like there's some extra faith in CEH this year. We'll pretend that Damian Pierce isn't available. Okay, so Tony Pollard is a guy that I think is great around this area. Let's just see how this roster looks. And just a heads up, you don't always need to take Dallas. So I have Dallas Goedert as my... I think he's in as my number 4 tight end. I really like how open things might get in that offense for him. Finish up our running backs with a guy who might come in later on in the season or due to injury, worst case. So I came around after that. You know how I feel about Mark. I just can't say no, especially once the ECR rankings are in agreement with me and he's next up. Like, okay, well, we agree with each other. And Jarvis Landry to follow that up. Part of the reason for the Jarvis Landry pick here is because I'm thinking I'm going to go with 2 quarterbacks instead of my normal 6 wide receivers, 6 running back type of roster. And we do that. So unfortunately, Tua just went. I like Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence. So we could pop off in this situation for a defense. We won't mess with fate here. We'll take Justin Fields. We'll assume defenses will start to get taken there. And then we'll... Okay, so looking at this, Derek Carr, Trevor Lawrence, Jameis Winston, I would like any of them. And I'm not excited, but if worst case scenario, I guess, comes together, Matt Ryan as my second quarterback wouldn't be the worst, but at that point I would probably just go and pick up a high-end wide receiver or a high-upside wide receiver, or let's see, Jerick McKinnon might not be the worst. He might have a role, but looking to see Josh Kelly would probably be a guy to get here. Eno could have that backup role in Arizona. Not a bad pick there. Kenyon Drake. And who else? Sony Michel. In that 8 spot, we got 2 running backs right out of the gate. Loved them. Followed that up with Michael Pittman, DJ Moore. Love that, love that. Jared Jeudy. Not the guy I would have taken, but we've taken some of those other guys. I want to talk on him and just kind of put it out there that I don't think this is the worst case in the world. I'm not, I'm not mocking that pick. If somebody wants to go Jared Jeudy, I'd probably rather take an Allen Robinson. Well, he's probably gone there, right? I like Michael Thomas there. Don't mind Juju there. Some injury concern, of course, Gabe Davis. Chris Godwin, don't mind there. Monroe, don't mind there. Amari Cooper, if you like that, don't mind there. It doesn't have a whole lot of competition for targets, at least. Rashad Bateman, Ayuk, Hunter Renfrow, up to about there. I mean, take any of them. So then we just made sure that we don't have to worry about running backs. CEH, Tony Pollard, Mondre Stevenson. We don't have many concerns for flexes or anything, and we just took the value at tight end, took an upside pick for running back, upside, safe, at wide receiver, and then 2 quarterbacks late between Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence. Not overly concerned with the production I probably should be able to get. All right, so let's do a tight end and or quarterback strong type draft. Now, I would take Mark Andrews. So, if you're a Travis Kelce fan, let's see how this looks. And don't take 2 tight ends like that. Don't. I mean, they're both great, but don't. We'll come around. We'll take CD. I would take Saquon over him, but let's just do, it's probably like a 0 RB type strategy here. T. Higgins, Pittman, DJ Moore, Cortland Sutton, Mike Williams. Mike Williams is the odd man out for sure on me there. I do love T. Yeah, I think that offense would be run more like it was in the second half of last season. And T. Higgins gives you a nice, safe amount of targets. Michael Pittman could be a little up and down. A little inconsistent. So could T. So that worked out with being able to go tight end and quarterback strong here. 0 RB-ish type strategy. Yeah, no. Brandon Cooks. solidify those wide receivers so we only have, hopefully ever, 2 running back spots to fill up. Okay, so in this situation, looking at Michael Thomas, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Chris Godwin, I have my 3 wide receivers kind of going 0. I am going 0 RB here. And I think Chris Godwin has the best value 4, 5, 6 weeks down the road out of these 3. Amon-Ra St. Brown's going to have an increase in competition as Jameson Williams, once he comes back onto the field. And Michael Thomas is just still a slight injury concern, although he doesn't have that tag next to him anymore. But he's just been injured so much. I don't know what the stats are. It's not like Chris Godwin's Mr. Healthy. But I just think that upside for Chris Godwin is slightly higher than Michael Thomas. So we did it. All right, we'll take a Damian Harris as our RB1. And we'll take Miles Sanders. We really never want to be in a position where we are wondering about how we're going to fill up that flex spot with a running back specifically. So took Christian Kirk there. Let several running backs go that, let's see if I regret it. No, Melvin Gordon made it. So, boom. I was looking at that list and I figured maybe somebody gets around there. I like James Robinson in this high upside if he comes back into that starter role. I think Jamal Williams is a really good floor guy that you can put it in there and fill in when needed at running back. And we need some upside dudes. So, Tyler Algier. I like Zamir White over Rashad White by a little bit. Deontay Foreman looks nice there too. I think it's safe to attack. So if you like San Fran's D over some of these. Okay, good to know. So that's where Deontay Foreman goes a bye-bye. Isaiah Pacheco available. Doesn't appear so. Appear strong. I liked, but it doesn't seem like the team's going to be able to trust him in the pass blocking, which he would really need to do in that role that he would get on that team. Might be a late season guy, or somebody goes down. Yeah, well, we're not worried about him getting taken, so we'll go ahead and take a Justin Tucker. We can always throw Pierre Strong out ASAP. Okay, so, I mean, Damian Harris and Melvin Gordon could be perfectly fine at running back. Should give us 2 guys who aren't falling out of the top 24 or so running backs most weeks, which is okay. Some other teams might be putting guys out there who are a little less consistent at least, so you might be able to compete or beat them at least at one of these spots. And you should be able to be beating half your league with your wide receiver 1, probably be on equal footing or so with your wide receiver 2, and probably have one of the better flexes while also having one of the top quarterbacks. My second favorite, but a tight end who will give you an advantage. And good kicker, Chris Godwin, Christian Kirk to back up your wide receivers. And then James Robinson, Jamal Williams, Tyler Algier, Zamir White, Pierre Strong. Do like that as a 0 RB bench, going along with 2 guys who are, I'm sure some 0 RBers might say they're not even 0 RB guys. I don't know for sure. It's like not a hero RB, but like a thrift RB strategy. I think we did 2 from the 8th spot. If not, my apologies. Moving on to the 9th spot. So here we're starting to go to a spot where going to RB is probably going to be the plan going in. Top wide receivers get taken up. Well, I do have Stephon Diggs actually higher than Jamar Chase. See if he actually makes it around the turn sometimes. He does. So because I have Stephon Diggs higher in my rankings, I would not argue. I mean, this is nice to know. Alvin Kamara, Saquon Barkley, Aaron Jones. Pretty nice spot for your second pick here from the 9th position. Do not advocate taking Zeke, but let's say you like Zeke more than Travis Etienne. There's still plenty of upside to Zeke. He could do better than Travis for sure. So that's of note there. as far as taking Zeke. Lost just 2 running backs to 3 wide receivers. I suppose it could go the other way around, but if you, especially if you're looking at like Zeke and ETN or something like that as equals, then you can get ETN here and go ahead and pick up a wide receiver ahead of that. Yeah, there's a lot of upside with Cortland Sutton. Can't argue with that. Right, so here is a situation. I'm fine taking JK. He is my RB3, so I am not put in a situation where I am forced to be playing him week 1. We don't do this often, so Lamar Jackson's my 3rd quarterback. I think I like him there as a value. Enough if you want to get a top 3, top 4 quarterback. That's about where you'll have to attack. Just looking at these top 2 names here. Wow, tight ends went. Top 2 names here, Elijah Moore, Devontae Smith. It's just more upside in this Philly offense. We want probably a safer guy. Maybe a nice roster to put a Hunter Renfrow on. I would take Ramondre over Chase. I would take Tony Pollard over Chase if I didn't have... Do I want to... Not really. If I didn't have Zeke. There's a little bit more upside with Chase, though, so we'll go for that. Might need that in our RB3 spot, especially if JK ends up being a dud or something like that. Probably not the roster to add a Ken Walker on, or a James Robinson. Probably would be the type of roster to add a Michael Carter on, but I just don't like that season-long prospect of that. We'll take the... I don't think that Treylon Burks is a candidate to be, a wide receiver 1 for the second half of the season type thing like some rookies do. But I do think he could be a solid wide receiver 2, essentially across the entirety of the season. It's a run-first offense. There's going to be a limited amount of opportunities. Woods is there. It's not like great news has come out of camp for Treylon, but if you watch him play, he has not been too terrible on the field. This roster could use some pizzazz, huh? I guess we got that at quarterback. Don't like that pizzazz. Zach Ertz, don't like it. I mean, is there a more potential pizzazz guy? So we'll hold on to Garrett Wilson for, hopefully we can hold on to him for long enough to find out if he was worth it. That's a bummer. I don't want Raheem Mostert and Chase Edmonds. Otherwise, that would have been a great somebody. Okay, well, let's pretend we like Zach Ertz. Wouldn't be a terrible time to take him. Those running backs nothing happened to them. Wide receiver, not much happened, but what happened? Yeah, a couple quarterbacks, a few running backs, Rashad White, Khalil Herbert, not targets. So I'm going to go wide receiver here, looking between Paris Campbell and Isaiah McKenzie, and Paris Campbell just has that little extra upside. I'd feel safer with Isaiah, but we're just going to take that potential upside with Paris Campbell. Might be a nice big play guy to bring in there. There being my roster. I don't know that Raheem Mostert would be here in most drafts anymore, starting in the next couple of days. Zamir White should be gone, so we'll take him. No, New Orleans just traded away Chauncey Gardner. Chauncey Gardner? I can't think of his full name. So I'm going to give the nod to Green Bay, even though New Orleans has a really nice first week. I mean, there's nothing to complain about this roster. I would just say it feels like the depth at the wide receivers a little bit concerning. once we get, and maybe part of that's just due to the concerns for J.K. Dobbins, the concern of having to work around him for a portion of the season, and hopefully not all the season, and maybe that ends up not being a concern after week 1, but just coming out of the draft, it is at least. Yeah, it's a pretty solid roster. So Lamar Jackson in at quarterback, attacked there, sat back. We took a tight end. I do not suggest taking. Could have waited a little bit longer and gotten, I think, worst case scenario, equal tight ends. And then running back Najee Harris, Ezekiel Elliott, J.K. Dobbins, and in the meantime, we can fill in with a Chase Edmonds if we need, and same with Jamal Williams if we need. And then we just got a little bit of upside with Zamir White, who best case scenario might be a Jamal Williams-esque type producer. And then for our wide receivers, Steph Diggs, love that. We feel like we got him one spot later than he needed to go at the position. Cortland Sutton, some nice good upside there. Hunter Renfrow, nice high floor, which always means there is a potential ceiling there. Traylon Burks, similar. Garrett Wilson, not similar. Paris Campbell, not similar. So Paris Campbell kind of our Garrett Wilson light there to just give a little zap to our lineup here. Go again from the 9th spot. I'm going to zip through this draft past an hour of recording already. So I'm going to go off of my rankings and see what this looks like. Well, I have to point this out. So I went Stephon Diggs, assuming I could get Mark Andrews after the turn, because he's often there late second round. Of course, I do this, and Mark Andrews goes ahead of Travis Kelce. Had a less than a 1% chance of getting taken, according to this. But that does leave Najee Harris for me. And that's nice. Yeah, I'll just go with the consensus A.J. Brown over Keenan Allen. I definitely can understand that, so do it. Yeah, so 5th round there. My rankings love that. Okay, so last 3 picks went Juju Smith-Schuster. Haven't really had the chance to take him yet, so that was fun. I took him over Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra's the more exciting player out of the two. And then came back around, took Miles Sanders. Feel pretty strong about running back. Heck, if there's any time I'll need a third running back early in the season is probably the time. He is the starter there. The biggest concern, which I don't know will be alleviated, is besides injury, is getting into the end zone for Miles Sanders. It's just not something he did last year. They have more threats now in the air and whatnot, and it makes sense that running backs don't get in the end zone a heck of a lot in this system, and sometimes they bring in a Boston Scott. Anyways, when they're real close, Miles Sanders breaks off a big run. He's a little tired. They bring in Boston Scott. Boom. Touchdown for Boston Scott. So it is what it is. And Tony Ballard, shore that up. So we have strength at running back. I like strengths at running backs. All right, once again, kind of wanted to get somebody that I haven't taken yet. I don't know that I've talked about a whole lot. If Julio Jones gets even like 80% of A.J. Brown type work here, he will be a steal. Obviously, a little bit of concern with injury risk, which might be why, maybe he doesn't get on the field as much, and maybe that's why he only does 80% of what A.J. Brown did. I don't know, but Tom Brady throwing to Julio Jones sure sounds nice to me. And then got myself a tight end here. We'll probably be looking wide receiver and quarterback right now. New Jahan Dotson. Here's a roster. I wouldn't hate going 2 tight end. You could definitely do that. I will not. So Matt Stafford has has a lower ADP than Trey Lance. And I wouldn't mind getting them together. So we'll just see how that works. It didn't work. Okay, so I need a wide receiver. I just went ahead. I took Rachaad White, Indianapolis Colts. We have 5 wide receivers, fairly spread out in value. Let's see. Julio Jones, obviously injury risk. I don't think production risk a whole lot, especially for where we get him in the draft. High upside there. Don't know what we're getting for sure in Jahan. Could be nothing. Juju, I guess there is some risk. So we probably want something safe. I was going to go with like Christian Watson, but yeah, we'll just go a little bit safer there. Isaiah McKenzie's a great safety net, I think, to have. There is the roster. Was going to back up Stafford with Justin Fields, Trey Lance at the time, and then passed up on matching Justin Fields up with him. We'll just hope that Stafford stays healthy. If he does, he'll be fine as a starting quarterback. Shouldn't let us down too many weeks, maybe 1 or 2 weeks. And then Najee Harris, Breece Hall, Dameon Pierce, Miles Sanders, Tony Pollard. Don't mess with my running backs, and my wide receivers are about to say don't mess with us either here. Yeah, I like this. And Rachaad White as a extra running back, because we all know they are the least trustworthy position as far as health goes by almost a mile. And then Stephon Diggs, A.J. Brown, Juju, Julio, Jahan Dotson, and then Isaiah McKenzie, kind of balancing each other out on the back end of that roster. And we'll hope that Julio stays healthy enough to get some use from him. Yeah, that's that. That's it. That's that roster. So that was drafting from my rankings. We'll say if you want to, up on the website, www.theFFforge.com, is where you can find all my rankings. They are mostly updated. There are a couple of changes that I will get to if I have a chance. I do have my desk. I'll have to go pick up a chair from, I think I'll go with the one at Costco that I saw there, coming tomorrow, hopefully. So, yeah, I'm going to also be filming from the 10, 11, 12 spot probably shortly here. I did end up getting these spread out, these videos, so that way as new news came up, some of my opinions could be amended along the way. So I will see you shortly on my end, and less short on your end. Goodbye. Thank you very much. Have a great day. I love you. Bye.